Konnichiwa. Welcome to another intriguing tale from the annals of history.
The Vietnam War, fought from 1955 to 1975, was a complex mix of Cold War anxieties, regional politics, and Vietnamese nationalism. After winning, Vietnam was divided into Communist North Vietnam and Democratic South Vietnam. America's initial goal was to contain communism. The U.S. saw South Vietnam as a potential domino and poured money and military aid to prop it up. The U.S. and Soviet Union never directly fought, but they supported opposing sides in Vietnam. This proxy war became a bloody battleground for Cold War ideologies. France, the former colonial ruler, fought a losing war against communist forces in Vietnam. When they pulled out in 1954, the U.S. stepped in to prevent a communist takeover of the South. Many Vietnamese resented French colonialism and wanted independence. The Communist North offered an alternative to both French rule and the U.S.-backed South Vietnamese government. The year was 1967. In the jungles of Vietnam, a fragile hope flickered for the Americans. Years of relentless pursuit had chipped away at the Vietcong's strength. The newly bolstered South Vietnamese government seemed to be gaining a foothold. Yet beneath the surface, a storm was brewing unseen. General Westmoreland, the architect of American strategy, saw an opportunity. The enemy, weakened and predictable, would be lured into a decisive battle at Khe Sanh, a remote outpost near the North Vietnamese border. Here, American firepower would finally crush the Vietcong rebellion. Khe Sanh became an obsession, a trap waiting to be sprung. Meanwhile, across the border, General Giap, the cunning North Vietnamese commander, plotted a different course. He saw the war not just on the battlefield, but as a grand play on the world stage. The American public, he believed, was weary of the conflict. A single audacious strike could shatter their resolve. As 1968 dawned, Khe Sanh braced for the anticipated assault. The world watched with bated breath as mortar rounds rained down on the American position. Yet, amidst the chaos, whispers reached Saigon. Attacks were erupting throughout South Vietnam. Cities burned, the Tet holiday shattered by the violence. The Vietcong, it turned out, had infiltrated the very heart of the South. The American embassy in Saigon, a symbol of Western power, was breached. Hue, the ancient capital, fell under siege. The carefully constructed narrative of American progress crumbled before the eyes of the world. Westmoreland, clinging to his initial vision, saw this as a desperate last stand by a weakened enemy. He believed Khe Sanh remained the key, the battleground where victory would be secured. But the Tet Offensive was not a military campaign, it was a psychological warfare masterpiece. Newspapers and television screens were flooded with images of a resurgent Vietcong, a seemingly invincible enemy striking at will. The American public, promised a swift end to the war, reeled in shock. Weeks bled into months as the fighting raged on. Khe Sanh eventually held, but at a terrible cost. The Tet Offensive, a military failure for the North Vietnamese, had achieved a far greater victory. It had exposed the hollowness of American claims and broken the will of the American people. The war dragged on for years to come, but the turning point had arrived. The grand strategists in Washington, fixated on battlefield dominance, had missed the bigger picture. They had failed to see the war through the eyes of their enemy, through the lens of public perception. In the end, the Tet Offensive stands as a stark reminder. War is a complex dance, not a simple clash of arms. True victory lies not just in defeating your enemy on the battlefield, but in understanding their motives, their strategies, and the hearts and minds of those you seek to influence. It is a lesson learned in blood, a cautionary tale whispered through the fog of war.